Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Folks, this is Philip Lomboy. Welcome to the program. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, around half of new businesses fail within 5 years. 65% don't make it to 10 years. Now, today's guest says that the culprit can be found in a common misconception held by most new entrepreneurs. We're going to dive deep into what that is and how you can avoid that pitfall on your own entrepreneurial journey. John Wiley is the owner of Charles-Kenyon Marketing Consulting. John's experience in a wide range of industries, from professional golf and restaurant operations to financial planning and advertising, informs his firm's holistic approach to helping their clients grow. I'm excited to bring this conversation to you. Let's jump right in with John Wiley. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Phil. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, tell us a bit about your business and how you're helping your clients.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my business focuses on small businesses and people starting businesses. A big thing that I have found over the years is that when a lot of people start looking at establishing a business or growing their business, is that they aren't beginning with the end in mind. They're not setting goals for their business growth. So they don't really know where they're going, and they don't have the plan, the processes to break those goals down into smaller pieces and keep moving forward towards the right direction to hit their targets.
You think that that's something that is just kind of built into it, but is that really not the case? I mean, is that something that you really just have to tell them a lot, that, hey, where exactly are we going here? And if that they're spinning their wheels, give me a little bit more about that. What are you finding?
Yeah, I think a lot of people get into the idea of starting a business that they've following something that they're really passionate about, but they may be looking at, it'd be great if I can make a couple $1,000s extra a month on this, or I want to make $10,000 a month on this, but they don't really look at it as, where is the business going to be, or where I want the business going to be down the road that's really going to provide me the value that I put from the time that I put into growing the business. So rather than looking at, I hope I can, I hope I can sell X amount of units at $100 a piece. Okay, well, let's get rid of the word hope. First of all, say, I want to sell X amount of units at $100 a piece, but that's now. So rather than say, I want to sell, have my revenue be at a certain level by the end of, end of 2022, then I need to backtrack into that. How many units do I need to sell to get there? And we work with an average first, but it's not all going to happen at once. So we start on a lower scale, and then we grow and we build. So we're selling 50 units in month 1, 2,000 units in month 2, 3,000 in month 3, and so on till we hit that goal. But there's smaller pieces along the way that they're not really thinking about.
You mentioned you're working with small and medium-sized businesses. Do you find that this is a challenge primarily for those kind of solopreneurs, small, mom and pop type shops, or is this fairly a prevalent issue?
Yeah, good question. A lot of the small business that I'm running into that are reaching out to me are, solo entrepreneurs and some mom and pop shops. I mean, they could be like I'm working with a construction worker, right, who's great at his job but doesn't know how to run his business, right? So, and also, so with that, he hasn't set any goals. He's doing well, but kind of gotten a little bit lucky, but could do a lot better if he had the processes in place, because then he would have more time freed up to not be actually working at the job site, but closing, getting government deals.
Tell me a little bit about that. You said he's good at his job, but not necessarily his business. Is that what you is that? Yeah. What does that mean?
His words, and this is a quote: "I'm great at doing the work and getting it done and being cost efficient, but I suck at running my business." So he has an office with nobody in it all day. And then he's trying to find time between being on the job site, looking for and filling out the extensive applications to get a government contract. So he's missing out on those contracts because he doesn't have the support systems and the people in place to help him grow.
Is this the proverbial working in his business as opposed to kind of on his business, or is there more to it than that?
No, that's straightforward. That's probably, if you looked it up in the dictionary, his business model would be right next to that. He's working in his business and really doesn't want to, and he likes working in his business, right? And he loves that part of his business, but he wants to grow his business as well. So he realizes where his weaknesses are and needs help.
What have you found keeps people from making that shift? I mean, they want to be successful. It may be such that they started as in a trade. They're very, very good at it. And then maybe someone had told them, or they got it in their head, oh, you should go out on your own. Just, put out your shingle. But as you alluded to, there's a lot more to having a business than just what you're doing. What keeps people from making that step? What is it fear? Is it just they just don't have the business acumen? What have you found?
I'd say a lot of it is fear, and it could be based around a number of different things. I mean, if we get into the psychology of where the fear is coming from, for me, my fear in starting my business 4 years ago, breaking away from a W-2 job, was what are other people going to think about me, right? What happens if I fail, right? And which was odd because when I started my business, I had a client come to me and told me, you should start your own business. And we sat down over a couple of beers and some fish tacos, and he wrote out the strategy on bar napkins on how I'm going to start my business, and said, when you're ready, I'll be your first client. So I had no fear really to deal with, but it was still in the back of my mind. It's like, what if I screw up, right? What if I invest money into my business and it just falls flat on my face? And, but with that too, what a big part of overcoming that fear, which is challenging, is, believing in yourself. That's where the fear comes from. But also surrounding yourself with the right people. Right. So this client of mine was a friend from a previous client when I was selling advertising. And he was continually telling his colleagues, call John, right? That's the network I built up. And then when I started realizing that I might be pretty good at what I do, right? And then I started growing from there. But then also surrounding myself with the right people, going to the conferences, realizing how good I was at networking, and then, going to the conference and finding the people I knew from networking who can help me grow my business. So it's a process. But I'd say the biggest thing to do is, you got to be around the right people. If you're around people that are being negative, questioning your thoughts, that's not a bad idea to have somebody question your thoughts, but somebody you can trust, somebody who's coming at you from a place of empathy because they've been there, right? A consultant like me, okay? Maybe it's a good idea to get a biased opinion from somebody who knows what they're talking about. And, your mom's going to tell you it's a great idea, right? Your big sister's going to tell you it's a great idea. But, that doesn't put money in your bank.
So really it's a matter of, well, you've lived it yourself. You've gone through that growth process yourself, and you understand that you're not alone. I mean, you're a lot further down the path than many, many other people that are just starting off their businesses now. And you're offering up that perspective that they probably don't have as of yet. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I think that's definitely fair. And thank you for that compliment. It is a challenge, to break away, and especially you realize that it takes time, and you go through different stages in your career from maybe just starting a side hustle where you want to be selling something on Shopify to growing that business and then moving into different titles, if you will. Now it's starting to take off a bit. I got some sales. Now I need to look at marketing more seriously. Now I'm the CMO, right? So I'm the CMO of my business. I've stopped doing the hustling. Now I'm marketing my business. Now I'm getting more revenue coming in. And now I'm moving into the CFO, or maybe I need to hire a bookkeeper to help me with my bookkeeping, or whatever that may be. Now revenue is starting to grow, but I'm missing something. I'm not having the customer service experience being recorded. I'm running out of inventory because I'm not staying on top of my purchasing, right? And then maybe the COO title, that's the new hat you wear. Eventually you become the CEO. You find titles for all those C-suite people, and then you become the founder. And now you're overseeing your business. And you're not working in the weeds anymore because you've built the systems and the processes and have the right people in place to see the business grow and pivot when it needs to.
Is there a particular point where it's best for someone to engage this type of holistic approach that you're talking about? Do they have to experience a bit of growth, or along with that some pain, kind of understanding that this is not an easy thing before they engage with someone like you? Or is there like a better time to do it?
I think any time is a good time. I think the criteria of when you're going to do something is when you've decided what the business is that you want to do. May I use an example? I was in a conversation with a brother and sister team, two really smart young people, both in their early 20s. And they wanted to start a restaurant. They had the whole concept around it, all the mindset. They had the name of the place, that they had worked on interior design and everything. They don't have the menu in place yet, which is fine. And they're like at least a year and a half to 2 years away from launching. So you would think like, well, why are you doing all that work? But they don't have to do all that work to get the business up and running. But I mean, a restaurant, obviously you need to have a kitchen, you need to have staff, you need to have the right location and everything. But they're doing the right things to create the vision of what their company is before they start it. So, and that could change, right? It could fall flat on its face. It could take off or go a totally different direction. But the first question I asked them was, do either of you have any restaurant experience? And neither one of them did. And so we deferred the working with them. I said, I think it would be a good idea, even if you did it part-time, to go wait some tables. Go be a hostess in a restaurant or a host at a restaurant. Go tend bar somewhere. Go get that job, and then you'll learn what it's like. Right? And I've worked for a number of restaurant startups, and until you're behind that counter, you really don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And it's a lot of work. Nobody thinks about like a restaurant that the crew comes in at 5 o'clock in the morning to prep. And they're prepping all day long. Right? But they feel, wouldn't it be fun to have a restaurant? No, it's not. It's a lot of work.
Sure.
Successful. And you're not the host, you're not the chef, you're actually walking around talking to your guests because you're the owner of a successful restaurant. Mm-hmm. Or your face is on Food TV network, right?
Right. It's relevant. It's the highlight reel they're thinking about, not necessarily the lows and plateaus.
Yeah. And if you spent, if you go just watch somebody in the kitchen and, see the sweat dropping off their brow and how hot it is in there and how they're, the waiters are arguing with the cooks because it's not done properly, and and the inventory control, everything. But I would say that it's a good idea at any time to be looking at the bigger picture of the business, and not from like you said the highlight reel. It's the highlight reel is like maybe what you want to focus on. That's the goal, right? But, when it gets right down to it, there's going to be a lot of bad days before you get to shoot that highlight reel.
So a couple of things stand out to me as far as what you just said. So one is that it's important to have somebody that's going to give you the real story, as opposed to just giving you like kind of blowing air into your sales, right? Kind of in that story you just told. It's like, hey, I think you got to step back a little bit. And even as you alluded to earlier, somebody that may be in their ring already, in their corner, is just go, that sounds great. Go ahead and do it. You can do it. Just cheering them on all the way through. It's important to have that support, but to your point, it's important to have that kind of person that has experience. They can say, well, you can't just keep on moving forward all the time. There may be some things you have to think about, maybe more strategically, maybe more holistically, maybe quote unquote realistically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's an exercise that I run a small call team around business growth, and we do this at the beginning of the calls as we break out in small groups in a Zoom call, and I take people through what we call pits of prosperity, and which sounds like an oxymoron, right? But you run into pits in your business, in your life, right? You go into a pit sometime or the other. Sometimes it's more frequent than other people, right? But when you're in that pit, you got to look at why are you in there? What was working before? What's not working now? And then we talk about it amongst each other, and then we come out with a plan. And then so we go into a pit, but we come out of the pit on higher ground, because we learn from that mistake. We learn from being in that pit, and we learn, okay, obviously that was a bad hire, right? We changed, just using the restaurant example, we changed our fish purveyor, our seafood purveyor, mid-year, and the quality's not as good. So we got to go back. We have to pay more because we'd rather have better quality than cheaper food, right? And so, in the process, the cheering on, that's kind of, I would say, more like a mentorship role, but just somebody who's going to be, you need to be vulnerable. I believe vulnerability is a great trait for any entrepreneur, to realize that maybe I screwed up, or maybe I need help. But also, you need somebody who is going to be blunt with you. As many people have been with me, right? I had one of the guys who was working with me on the marketing services say, your job's really not to get in the weeds with us. You need to just be talking with the clients. And I was like, what? and then I realized that, I'd rather you be on the golf course with clients and getting new clients than talking to me about the website design, because this is what I do. Basically, my guy was telling me to get out of his way. But that was, he's a great hire and he's a great friend. So, that helped. But you need to have that blunt interaction, not in a rude way, but a productive way. And a lot of that just comes with asking questions. Is there another way to do this? Have you looked at your cash flow? What's your P&L statement looks like? Should I go from LLC to S Corp? How much money are you making? Right? There's a kind of a threshold and you should change. Right? How are you taking your money out of the business? Are you taking any money out of the business for yourself? Are you taking all the money out of the business for yourself and not setting anything aside? Those types of questions force somebody to answer them. As in my mind, as a consultant, it is that hero story, right? I'm not trying to be the hero. I'm trying to be the guide. I'm trying to make you the hero of your business. And then in turn, if it's a restaurant or you're selling a product, the business has to be the guide to the consumer, to your ideal prospect. You want the husband who chose your restaurant for their anniversary dinner to feel really proud about that by providing them great service. So he can walk. So his wife says, "Honey, that was a great place for our anniversary dinner." Right? So it's kind of a cycle, right? But it all starts, in my role, I'm Yoda to Luke Skywalker, or to the Caddyshack fans out there, I'm Ty Webb to Danny Noonan. Maybe nobody gets that but me. But it really is. It's about guiding them through the process.
It's interesting what you said as well in terms of your client needing to have some humility with this as well, because it may be such that they're just thinking of you in a way that's, well, he's giving me specific services like, creating campaigns or a website or that type of thing. But if they only stick with that and they're not willing to take the feedback that you could provide in a more of a consulting role, then it sounds like that's probably gonna make them spin their wheels more than really make progress.
Yeah, being humble is a great trait. I think you can be overly humble. You need to be self-aware of where you've succeeded. But I also think, and I can't think who the quote was, MacArthur maybe, Eisenhower, I'm not sure, but it's the definition of leadership is deferring, accepting no credit, and deferring, accepting all the blame and deferring all credit to the people who work with you. And, again, just using the restaurant analogy, you're only as good as the people you hire. If you've got a great wait staff, a great kitchen staff, you're not cooking anything, right? Give them all the credit, and then you can thank yourself later that you hired people well, right? And you manage them well. You accept this servant leadership role, which I think that's a lesson my father taught me. Servant leadership role. This is a loose definition. The servant leader is focused on the growth of the employees, not the growth of the business. Because if the employees are growing, your business will inevitably grow with that. And they are the people you're relying on to grow your business.
John, this was great. I'd like to learn a little bit more about you, though, as far as your backstory. How did you end up in this type of role and, being able to do this and provide this wisdom to your clients? What inspired you? What, how did you get into this?
Well, I'll try to make this brief, but, there was a point in my life not too long ago, a couple of years ago, maybe a year or so ago, and I was looking back over my career, and it's been widely varied. And I've always and this is where that self-belief comes in. I've always looked at that as it's been a failure in many ways. I've not stuck at the same job, right? I'm not committed to this area until at one point in my career, I decided I want to get on the PGA Tour. But even then, I didn't get there. But I got a great job at one of the best golf courses in the world. And that very few people ever have a chance to. So I went from out of college into the film industry and then to financial planning, which I did very well at, into the golf industry. And then from there, I went to Chicago, opened up a golf course, which had a full service restaurant and run a restaurant background. And I go through this and I got into the wholesale side of the restaurant industry. And a buddy of mine called me one day and said, "I'm hiring this guy. I think you'd be a good replacement for his job. It's in advertising sales." It's like I have no clue what to do about advertising sales. But what I did know is that I took a very consultative approach to my sales. I put a lot of interest into what the company's goals were. Like, what do you want to get out of this? And I hear things like, well, I want to run a couple ads and see what happens. And I'll say, well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. I said, one, you're going to spend about $10,000. Two is nothing's going to happen. Three is you'll never take my phone calls again because nothing ever happened. And they would look at me like I was crazy. This is the worst sales pitch ever. I said, I would suggest deferring your ad buy for 6 months until you get things figured out. And I'd be happy to work side by side with you in that. You can call me anytime if you have any questions. And I just did that because I thought it was a good thing to do. Now jump ahead, looking at my career, and I was like, I'm not completely satisfied with where I was going. So I'm going to start my own business. And COVID hit, made an impact on some of my clients' businesses. And I decided that, okay, let's go back and review my career. I said, this is where I've got the most pleasure out of my life. My first managerial job, my direct report was this guy. He's a great guy, but he's got terrible temper. He moved on to another position, so I had a new boss who was the head pro at the golf course. He allowed me to fail all the time. Like every day I was failing, right? Until it finally set in that this is how you talk to people. And just those opportunities that came along the way. The first time I was managing a chain of restaurants, and this young lady had never hit her bonus. And we sat down and crunched out the numbers. I told her, if you could sell one beverage, doesn't matter what kind of beverage, just somebody has to pay for it, for every 4 customers that come through your restaurant, you'll hit your goal. And the joy that I got from seeing her hitting her goal was more than any money could pay me. And, it almost brought me to tears. I just kind of get choked up talking about sometimes. But those little wins along the way, it's like, damn, I actually know what I'm doing. I was discrediting this whole career, thinking that it's been a failure. When I look back on it now, it's like, I've done things that a lot of people could never say they did. And the doors that things opened up for me, to open up a golf course in downtown Chicago, I shared birthday cake with Michael Jordan twice on accident, but it was a funny story, right? I met Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer. I hung out with Bruce Willis after shoots on the TV show we were on. All these different things. I played golf with captains of industry. All of these things have added to my quill, put more bows into the quill. And had I not followed that path, I might have been stuck in a job that I hated, that didn't go anywhere, right? But it's set me up to, and it's taken some time to really realize that I really, from the deepest part of my heart, that this is what I'm intended to do. And I look forward to getting up every morning. I look forward when I get a new lead coming in. I look forward to getting on a conversation with somebody who wants to start a business and they have no idea what they're going to do or where they're going to go. I'm working with a guy right now. He's an immigrant from, I think, Argentina. He moved here years ago, but he has a high-end auto body shop. He works on Rolls Royces, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and this was a shift he made last year. His business is starting to grow, but his goal is to have a Formula One racing team. I mean, how awesome is that, right? To go from a 2-stall garage, now he's got, I think, 4 stalls, to he's developing his own products, his own exhaust systems and things for race cars, to have a Formula One race team. That costs millions and millions of dollars to have a Formula One race team. But the fact that he's looking to me to help him get there is an honor. The fact that he's paying me is even better. But but the fact that I could have that impact on somebody, right? Yeah, it's like I said, it gets me up in the morning, gets me excited to go through my day.
Fantastic. John, as you think about your clients and the ones you have now, and even like the ones potentially that are needing your help, what would you say they should ask themselves as they consider growing how do we grow our business? Maybe it's just that they're looking for something that a lot of people talk about, like you mentioned earlier, okay, we just need a website, or we need some sort of an advertising campaign. As they're thinking that way, what would you tell them? Well, maybe you should think about this as well.
Well, definitely, what are my long-term goals? And I would, excuse me, that is something that they should be thinking about from day one. But, I would, on a call, I would go deeper with them. Let's not just what your short-term goals are, but what are the long-term goals? What's your legacy, with the business, which I think is a great concept to be thinking of. What is my legacy with the business, right? What's my impact on the community? Those types of things. But I think, first of all, just what are my goals would be the first question I'd say somebody should ask themselves, because it's the first question I'm going to ask them.
Awesome. And in terms of if they started to think about asking those questions and choosing somebody to help them, what are the things that they should look for in choosing a coach, consultant that should help them?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on where they are. If they're an established business, it'd be a little bit different than a startup. Because, a lot of startups are more conceptual at the beginning because they don't have things in process. But I would say, like with an established company, you want to be working with somebody who understands the organizational structure of a company, regardless of how big it is. There should be one, and understanding finances. I think if a lot of truth is in the pudding with finances. If you have established business, you need to know where you're making money. I worked for an association and was VP of publishing, and when we started looking at the profitability of the magazines and the website they were doing, they didn't look at the bigger picture. They didn't look at my salary, the salary of the creative team, salary of the editorial staff. They just looked at how much money it cost to produce. And that greatly inflated their revenue projections and their sales. So when you need to factor in everything when you're running a business. You should factor in what is the cost per employee, because it all plays a role. How much value does every employee add to the bottom line? If you have a restaurant, like a restaurant, for example, the bathrooms are some of the most important things to have taken care of. If you have a dirty restroom, it sets the mind in the customer's view, like what's the kitchen look like? What's the host like? Is the host rude? Are they friendly? Whatever that is. But with a startup, I would definitely say conceptually, they need to be thinking who their ideal prospect profile is. And sometimes, startups get into the numbers too quick, where they think, oh, there's this many people in this segment, say 1 million people in this segment. If we could just get 20% of that at X amount of dollars, we'll be fine. But is that really your ideal prospect profile? Is their widget going to fit everybody in that profile? Who is their competition? Who's done it? Who's done what they've done before? And can you copy them? Not like literally copy them, but watch what they've done and review their company growth and see how they got to where they were. You can do the research.
That's great. John, this was a great conversation. If somebody wanted to contact you about your services, get a hold of you, how could they do that?
LinkedIn would probably be a great way on social media. That's probably where I am the most. Twitter, but LinkedIn probably primarily. My website, Charles-Kenyon.com, which is Charles-Kenyon, Kenyon.com. Or they can just email me at Charles-Kenyon.com. So it's john@Charles-Kenyon.com.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.